Thank you, Mr. Lee. Does the state have a witness?
Yes, sir. The state calls Dep Mike Robertson.
All right. Deputy Robertson. Come on up. All three. Have a seat up here, okay? Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending for the court
Yes.
will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Keep your voice up and face the jury, okay?
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
State your name for the record, please.
Michael Lee Robertson.
How are you employed?
I'm a Greene County Sheriff Deputy.
How long have you worked for the sheriff's
Almost
office?
18 years.
What is your current assignment?
I work with our civil division now.
What does that mean, just in general?
We do protection orders, various civil papers, evictions, writ body attachments, which are warrants, things like that.
Is that a job you sought within the sheriff's office?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and, you got to say yes or no.
Yes, sir.
We're at part-time, backing down,
Yes,
as
sir.
normally thought. What did you do for the sheriff's office in June of 2015?
I was a patrol deputy.
Could you talk to the jury a little bit about what the duties of a patrol deputy are?
Various functions, criminal investigation, some accident, traffic investigations, or traffic stops, or things like that. It's about things that's generally what it is, working cases and taking initial reports for cases and stuff like that.
Responding to 911 dispatches?
Yes.
Well, I take you back to June 14th of 2015. On that day in the afternoon, did you have an occasion to be dispatched to 2103 West Volunteer Way?
Yes.
Is that a location here in Greene County?
Yes.
What was it that caused you to be dispatched to that location?
It came out as a check of well-being for two individuals in that residence.
And was there something about in the notes, in the dispatch notes, about why you were going there to check the well-being of the residents?
Yes, something about Facebook posts that friends of the two individuals had received, stating that they had possibly been raped and murdered, or either or.
And so did you respond to that location?
Yes, sir.
Were there other deputies who responded there with you?
Yes, sir.
Deputy, I'll get this whole question out before you
Yes,
answer.
sir.
Deputy Robertson, I'm going to show you a series of photos here that are marked. You can see they're marked on the back of the State's Exhibit sticker. The State's Exhibits 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. If you just take a moment and look at those. Deputy Robertson, in general, what are we looking at in State's Exhibits 1 through 5?
The residence in which I responded to.
At 2103 West Volunteer Way?
Yes.
And I noticed there's some crime scene tape at some of those pictures.
Yes.
And that would not have been there when you arrived.
No, sir.
Other than that, these State's Exhibits 1 through 5 fairly and accurately depict the exterior of the residence?
Yes.
I'd move to admit State's Exhibits 1 through 5.
No objection, Your Honor.
They'll be admitted without objection.
Can you see that, Deputy?
Yes, sir.
Can everyone see the screen?
Can you all see it okay? All right.
When you got to Well, we put up the first picture. Let's look at State's Exhibit 1 here. Is that the residence we've been discussing?
Yes.
The pink one with the white railings and ramps?
Yes.
When you got to that location, what did you find?
The vehicle in question sitting in the driveway, and it looked just pretty much like that.
When you say the vehicle, you're talking about the Nissan Cube there?
Yes.
And was there anyone there when you got there?
There were friends of the family there that initially made the 911 call.
And did you speak with them?
It was real brief, but Deputy Hughes spoke to them most of the time.
Did you check the residence to see if you could locate Claudine Blanchard and Dee Dee Blanchard?
Yes.
Can you describe what you did to do that?
We checked the windows to see, and the door to see if there was any forced entry or any broken windows. We couldn't see in because the windows were blacked out. But we didn't see any signs of forced entry or anything like that.
And did you just check the front windows there and door? Or did you check other parts of the residence?
We checked all the windows.
And so now looking at State's Exhibit 2, on the right side of the residence, looks like there's a window and door on that side as well.
Yes.
And you checked those.
Yes.
And State's Exhibit 3 is a different view of that side, correct?
Correct.
And what are we looking at now?
That is the back side or north side of the residence.
Can you check that as well?
Yes.
No signs of forced entry.
No, sir.
And now we can see the left side of the house there. Did you check that window as well?
Yes, sir.
And so, did you all knock on the door, ring the doorbell, try to find anyone?
Yes, we knocked on the doors, all the windows. We identified ourselves, as much as we could through the windows. We got no response.
Did you check the mailbox?
Yes.
Why did you check the mailbox?
To see if the mail had been checked, because they said they had not been seen for 2 days, and there was still mail in the mailbox.
And do you recall what the postmark was of that mail?
I don't remember.
We refresh your recollection, look at your report.
Yes.
Is that your report there?
Yes.
And if you just take a moment and read it to yourself, not out loud. Don't say it out loud. Does that refresh your recollection?
Yes.
What was the postmark of the mail in the mailbox?
June 8th, 2015.
So after you and the other deputies were not able to obtain the attention of anyone inside the residence and checking the mailbox, do you then continue to investigate this case, or you hand it off to someone? How does that work?
I called our on-call detective and informed him of the matter.
And then did they respond after the resident?
Yes.
Nothing further.
Any name of this witness?
No, Your Honor.
They may be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yes, sir. You have another witness?
Yes, just one moment. State called Jim Stanley.
Hello. Have a seat. Watch your step. People trip on that all the time. You raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending before the court? Do you do the whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I did.
Thank you. Have a seat. Yes, sir.
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Jim Stanley.
How are you employed?
I am a owner of Forensic Fire Investigations here in Springfield, Missouri.
What does that business do?
We investigate fires and explosion incidents for the public sector.
Did you used to work for the Greene County Sheriff's Office?
I did.
When did you leave the Greene County Sheriff's Office?
December 28th of 2015
And why did you leave that?
to get into the private sector.
When you worked for the Sheriff's Office, how long did you work for them?
I started in March of 2001.
And what types of duties did you have during the time you were with the Sheriff's Office?
Initially, I was hired as a patrol officer. Then I was promoted up to patrol sergeant. I was promoted into the detective division. And before I left the Greene County Sheriff's Office, I was a supervising sergeant over the property crimes division.
Can you talk a little bit about what it means to be in the detective division of the Sheriff's Office?
Yes. For me, I did numerous types of crimes, violent crimes. I did property crimes. I was also a fire and explosion investigator, so I was detached to Springfield Fire Department, where I served as a bomb tech on the bomb squad.
With regard, and did you work on any homicide investigations?
I did.
As a detective?
Yes.
What kind of training did you have in that area?
Attended numerous seminars, trainings over the years. I've attended some of the courses I've taken was homicide investigation techniques, major crimes investigator, major case squad training, and I'm a level 3 CSI through the Missouri Southern State Catalyst Council.
And by CSI, in the crime scene investigator?
Yes, sir.
You said that at the end of your time in the Sheriff's Office, you were a supervising sergeant?
Correct.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I had a group of 10 detectives that were under my command, and they were in the property crimes division, so they would investigate anything from burglaries to auto theft. They could go on other things too as well to assist other scenes as far as homicides, violent crimes, arsons, any type of incident.
I want to draw your attention to June 14th of 2015. Were you working for the Sheriff's Office on that day?
Yes,
Did you have an occasion to be called out to 2103 West Volunteer Way?
I did.
Is that a location here in Greene County?
It is.
Why were you called out to that location?
I was called out by my lieutenant to respond in reference to possible suspicious circumstances. Once I arrived out at the scene, they told me that if there was a crime, I would be in charge of the crime.
You mean, and by charge of the crime, you mean in charge of the crime scene?
Yes, correct.
And did you ultimately perform a search of 2103 West Volunteer Way?
I did.
Was that pursuant to a search warrant?
It was.
It's Exhibit 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. You can skip 13 through 18, 19, 20, 20A, 21, 22A, and 22B, 22, 23, 24, 25, 28, skipping 29 for the moment, 30, 31, 33, and 34. Have you seen those photographs before?
I have.
And in general, what do those photographs depict?
They depict generally the exterior of the residence working to the interior of the residence. The front door would be number 6.
Without going into detail of all of them, do they generally depict and document your specific residence?
They do.
And are they fair and accurate representations of what the residence looked like, both outside and inside, during your search of the residence?
Yes.
At this time, I'd move to admit it's Exhibits 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14,
You had. Then you jumped to 19.
19, 20, 20A, 21, 22A, 22B, 22, 23, 24, 25, 27, 28, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34.
Any objection?
No objection.
That was received without objection.
A moment ago, you were starting to tell us how the residence spaced and where it was. Can you just briefly describe that to us as we look at State's Exhibit 1?
Yes, the front of the residence faces to the south. There is a purple colored Nissan Cube and a driveway and a ramp that goes up in front of the residence for a wheelchair.
And did you check their residence to see if there are any signs of forced entry?
I did.
Did you find it?
I did not.
So what are we looking at? State's Exhibit 2?
Looking at the driveway of the residence, the southeast corner of the exterior.
State's Exhibit 4?
Be the rear corner, which would be the north side, back of the residence.
State's Exhibit 5?
We'll be looking at the southwest corner of the residence.
And so in those exhibits 1 through 5, and we see all the windows and doors of the residence that you checked.
We did.
What are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 6?
We're looking at the front door leading to the entry, located on the south side porch.
And now what are we looking at? State's Exhibit 7?
Now we're looking from the front door that opens in to the left. We're looking to the north down a long hallway.
So is that the door on the far left of the photograph there?
It is.
Okay. And I think you said we're looking down the hallway. What is to our left if we were to step in and turn left?
That would be the living room.
And if we were to turn to our right, what would we find?
Immediately find a dining room, then a kitchen off just to the other side.
So we can see some of the appliances there.
Correct.
What are we looking at now?
We're looking at the dining room and partial kitchen.
And later there's going to be some items over here. What is this area of the kitchen?
That would be the corner of the table.
What are we looking at now? State's Exhibit 9.
We are looking at the west north wall of the living room. You have a couch and a wheelchair off to the left.
Is that what I'm highlighting there?
It is.
And this is a condition in which the living room was when you first entered the residence.
Yes.
Now what are you looking at in State's Exhibit 10?
Looking down the hallway to the north, we are looking at a bottle, spray bottle on the floor.
Is that what I've highlighted there?
Correct.
And what is this over here in the hallway?
That is a black baseball style cap.
As we walk down this hallway, what do we find to our left?
The first room to the left
Yeah.
is a storage room,
Okay. And then the next door?
would be a bathroom.
And is there a door beyond that?
There is a door beyond that. It should be a bedroom identified as Gypsy Rose Blanchard's bedroom.
Okay. And if we go down this hallway, down to the far end to our right, what do we find?
That would be the bedroom belonging to Claudia Blanchard.
For Claudine Blanchard.
Claudine, yes.
What we're looking at here, and Stacy Google down the hallway to the left.
Correct.
And what are we,
Correct.
and what are we looking at here in Stacy Exhibit 12?
Room all the way down to the right, Claudine Blanchard, laying on a bed.
And is she in the bed here?
She is.
We're looking at here in State's Exhibit 19.
We're looking at a trash can next to the bed, would be on the east side of the bed, it's the wall. And there would be
And in State's Exhibit 20, is it just a close-up?
it is, and that would be like a white,
Is that depicted here in State's Exhibit 20A?
it is.
Where are we looking at now in State's Exhibit 21?
We're looking at the southwest corner of Dee Dee Blanchard's bedroom with a plastic bottle of suspected cleaning solution.
Similar to the bottle we saw in the hallway earlier.
Yes.
What are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 22?
This is an overall of the bathroom with a wheelchair in the center of the bathroom.
And we're going to get to it in a minute, but there's a laundry basket there over to the left by the tub.
Yes.
And then when you're looking in this room, you also look at the sink area there to the right and items beside the sink.
Correct.
What are we looking at here in State's Exhibit 22A?
We're looking at the door leading into the bathroom, and we're
I
looking,
see something right there that I'm pointing at with the pointer. What was that consistent with in your training experience?
blood evidence.
And now in State's Exhibit 22B, what are we looking at?
Same thing, close up.
State's Exhibit 23, what are we looking at?
We're looking at a disposable razor that's in a laundry basket.
And now State's Exhibit 24, what are we seeing?
Looking at a roll of paper towels next to the sink.
State's Exhibit 25, what is that?
That is the top section of the roll of paper towels with suspected blood.
And do you have that map pointer there?
Yes.
Maybe want to step down to show what you're talking about?
Of course.
Talking about right here is we have droplets here, 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 and then we have kind of a smudge mark here.
Thank you. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 26 for identification. You recognize that?
I do.
And what is it?
That would be the recovered roll of paper towels.
And 26 is actually the paper bag, correct?
That is correct.
And it's the bag you place that roll of paper towels from State's Exhibit 25 into?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because I've dated it, I placed my initials on the evidence tape.
So this writing we see on the front of the bag, is that yours?
The writing here would be from Detective Wallace, who assisted at the scene. He's crime scene assistant.
You mentioned the evidence tape. How do you know that's your evidence tape?
That is my initials, my date.
And then on the front, next to the exhibit sticker,
That's a property evidence barcode. So that's a property evidence barcode. So when we fill those out, we place them onto the bag, so we start getting property.
and that identifies this as a roll of paper towels.
It does.
Now there's some blue tape on here as well. In your experience, what is that consistent with?
That could be consistent with a laboratory.
And this label on the back, is that also consistent with the lab?
It is.
Other than the fact that it has this bar sticker from the lab on the back and the blue tape from the lab, is this evidence bag with paper towels in substantially the same condition as when you took it from the residence at 2103 West Volunteer Street?
It is.
I move to admit case exhibit 26.
No objection.
Will be admitted without objection.
What are we looking at here in case exhibit 27?
May I step down?
Yes.
We're looking at suspected blood droplet here in the sink.
And did you do something to try to collect that suspected blood droplet from the sink?
I did.
What did you do?
Took a DNA swab.
And what are we looking at here in case exhibit 28?
We were looking at the swab here. It was used to collect the sample. You can see the red staying on the DNA spot.
Go ahead, Steve. And now I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 29 for identification. Do you recognize that?
I do.
How do you recognize State's Exhibit 29?
It has my writing, the date, and my initials on the crime for the evidence statement.
And does it also have a sticker and some blue tape consistent with the crime lab?
It does.
Other than the fact that it has those crime lab markings on it, well, 29.
29 would be the possible blood swab collected from the scene.
That we see in State's Exhibit 28.
Correct.
Other than the fact that it has the lab markings on it, is it in substantially the same condition as when you took that swab?
It is.
I move to admit State's Exhibit 29.
No objection.
To be received without objection.
All right, what are we looking at here now in State's Exhibit 30?
We're looking at receipt and Missouri driver's license of Dee Dee Blanchard, as well as a debit card.
And where are we looking at this?
I'm sorry.
That's where in the house are we?
I'm sorry. It's in the kitchen area on the kitchen table.
All right, and so behind the kitchen table up here, it looks like there's like mosaic or some kind of stained glass or something. What is it we're looking at up there on State's Exhibit 30?
That's actually a window covering over the window.
That looks kind of like stained glass
It does.
applied to it.
Imitation.
I think it's like a film.
It is.
State's Exhibit 31, what are we looking at?
We're looking at Dee Dee Blanchard's Missouri driver's license, as well as a debit card, and I believe another card.
And that's where you saw them on the table there?
Yes.
What we see in State's Exhibit 32?
Yes.
So now what are we looking at in State's Exhibit 33?
On the left corner of the table, we're looking at a plastic tub.
Are you talking about this over here?
I am.
Okay. And did you find something of interest in that tub?
I did.
What was it?
It was a box of blue latex gloves.
Is that what we're looking at here in State's Exhibit 34?
It is.
Make sure what's been marked for identification in State's Exhibit 35. Do you recognize what's depicted in State's Exhibit 35?
I do.
In general, what is it?
It is a bank bag in the top left drawer of the dresser that was sitting next to the bed.
In which room?
Dee Dee Blanchard's room.
Is that a fair and accurate depiction of that bank bag in that drawer?
It is.
I move to admit State's Exhibit 35.
No objection.
Be received without objection.
And would you use your pointer and point out the bank bag we're talking about?
Yes.
It's right here, and it's the Community National Bank bag, top of the drawer.
And what is this item to the up and to the right of the bank bag?
That would be a roll of duct tape.
Okay, thank you. No further questions?
Mr. Reed, anything?
No question, John.
Say this witness be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Officer, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, we can go about an hour and 10 minutes here. I think it might be a good time for a little break. I want to again remind you of what you were told at the first recess of the court. Until you retire to consider your verdict, you must not discuss this case among yourselves and with others, or permit anyone to discuss it in your hearing. You should not form or express any opinion about the case until it's finally given to you to decide. Do not do any research or investigation on your own, about any matter regarding this case or anyone involved with the trial. Do not communicate with others about the case by any means. Do not read, view, or listen to any newspaper, radio, electronic communication from the internet, or television report of the trial. About 11:07, why don't we come back about 11:20?
All righty. All rise.
You're just in charge of the Jolly Ranchers. But you can pass them down to whomever. Let me know. We usually go with chocolate in the afternoon and Jolly Ranchers in the morning, if that's okay with everybody. All right. Mr. Patterson, and we're getting, I understand we ran out of hot chocolate, so we're getting more hot chocolate brought up. Mr. Patterson, or Mr. Chapman.
Thank you, Your Honor. State call Tom Vandeberg.
Sir, come on up. Are these not helping?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. How are you? Good. You probably swear that the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a seat. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
Can you please state your name?
Thomas J. Vandeberg.
And could you maybe spell your last name for the record?
It is Vandeberg.
Sir, what is your current occupation?
I am the Chief Forensic Investigator with the Greene County Medical Examiner's Office.
In general, what is the Greene County Medical Examiner's Office?
The Medical Examiner's Office is tasked by statute with investigating any sudden unexpected death or any death that is suspicious or caused by any kind of violence.
What are your current duties right now as Chief Forensic Investigator?
As the Chief Forensic Investigator, I supervise the 4 other investigators in the office. I assist with autopsies, I do death scene investigations, and I do the administrative paperwork side of the office also.
How long have you been Chief Forensic Investigator?
17 years.
Before being the Chief Investigator, did you work for the Medical Examiner's Office in another capacity?
Yes, I was an investigator for 4 years before becoming the Chief Investigator.
Was that pretty much the same duties without all the supervisor stuff?
It was actually mostly on-call, part-time. I also worked as a paramedic at that time.
And where did you work as a paramedic?
I worked my last 5 years as a paramedic here in Springfield for Mercy Hospital.
Where did you start your career as a paramedic?
I started in Sioux City, Iowa. I obtained EMT and then EMT intermediate and paramedic training through Western Iowa Tech Community College. Worked in Sioux City, worked in Southern California, Nebraska, Montana, and then back to Iowa before moving here.
And how many total years did you work as a paramedic?
20 years.
What is your educational background?
I have an associate's degree in police science. I have a bachelor's degree in business administration, and I have a master's degree in forensic science.
Did you initially receive some specialized training to become a paramedic?
Yes.
And what was that training?
That training was, it's a 1,200-hour paramedic training curriculum that includes classroom and practical training in emergency medicine, anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, and everything to do with working as a paramedic in pre-hospital care.
Then did you receive specialized training specifically in investigating death scenes?
Yes.
And what was that?
In January 1996, I attended the St. Louis University Medical Legal Death Investigation Training course. I also, later in 1996, attended the Medical Legal Death Investigation Training course put on by the State Medical Examiner in Iowa, which is where I was working at the time. And then I've taken multiple continuing education trainings in all different aspects of forensic investigation.
And do you have any certification?
I am certified as a fellow by the American Board of Medical Legal Death Investigators.
As a forensic investigator, is it fair to say that your duties can be split up between investigation on scene and then assistance during autopsies?
Yes.
Can you describe what is it that you do as an investigator in general when you're actually on the scene?
At the death scene, we are summoned typically by law enforcement who is already there. Initially, on arrival, we make contact with the lead investigator from law enforcement, get a summary of what's going on. We start taking photographs of the outside of the scene, and then we photograph as we go into the scene, gather all the information we can about the deceased, and then we observe and record what we see at the scene, and then do a examination of the deceased, and then package the deceased for transportation for autopsy if that's required.
Then when you are assisting in an autopsy, what are your duties?
When I assist with the autopsy, typically it's myself and the forensic pathologist. I get the body out, weigh the body, get all the containers and everything set up for the autopsy. Then I take the photographs during the autopsy. I assist with measurements and weighing and documentation as directed by the pathologist. And then I also assist the pathologist in opening the body, removing the organs for their examination.
As the forensic pathologist is conducting the autopsy, are you also personally observing what, if any, injuries may be present?
Yes. The pathologist is on one side of the table, I'm on the other, and we're working together.
And does that include both the injury, if present, on the surface level of the body, as well as any damage that may be caused internally?
Yes.
And has your training and experience allowed you to become familiar with human anatomy?
Yes.
Which specific training?
All the way through EMT and paramedic training, death investigation training. In my forensic master's degree, we had 2 forensic pathology courses that went heavily into anatomy and physiology of the body.
And then has a portion of your training experience also been on being able to determine what mechanisms cause certain injuries?
Yes.
In which specific parts of your training?
And mechanism of injury was very important in pre-hospital care and paramedic training because you had to anticipate injuries that didn't show up right away by examining the mechanism of injury and what could possibly be injured that you don't see right away.
I'd like to call your attention to the early morning hours of June 15th of 2015. Were you called out to 2103 West Volunteer Way?
Yes, I was.
Can you describe what initially brought you to that location?
I was called by the sheriff's office with the information that there was a homicide at that location.
When you arrived on scene, about what time of day or night was it?
I arrived on the scene shortly before 2 a.m.
Fair to say there were a lot of police and other personnel there?
Yes.
When you first arrived on scene, what were some of the first things that you did?
I met with Detective Stanley, who was the lead investigator at the scene, got a synopsis of what was happening, that there was a deceased female, that they had gone into the residence, done their initial observations, but had not touched the body at that point. At that point, we put on protected clothing, a Tyvek suit, boot covers, gloves, photographed the external area of the scene, and then we entered through the front door of the residence.
Once you were inside the residence, what did you do?
Took photographs going through of the kitchen, dining area, living room, bathroom and another bedroom that the door was open, and then started photographing into the room where the decedent was.
And did you later learn her name was Claudine Blanchard?
Yes.
Once you were in the room where Ms. Blanchard's body was, how did you conduct your investigation?
We start from the doorway, noting the condition of the room, what lights are or aren't on, position of furniture, position of other items around the room, and then work into the body, observing the body in the position found, and with, in this case, the coverings, the bed coverings, covering most of the body.
Did you ultimately observe any injuries?
Yes. As we went up to the actual body, there were several defects which appeared from sharp injury through the back of the clothing. She was laying face down on the bed. Arms were up with hands kind of underneath her face, and there was blood saturating the back of the nightgown that she was wearing, and blood also on the bed.
Once you made those observations, then what was the next thing you did?
And then once we moved the bedding down, moved the clothing up, we did observe several apparent stab wounds across the upper back.
Yeah. Aside from the injuries that you've talked about, was there anything else that you could determine about the condition of Ms. Blanchard's body?
Rigor mortis was passing, which takes 24 to 36 hours for rigor mortis to be firm and then start to pass after 24 to 36 hours. Her rigor mortis was passing. Her face and the dependent level of her body, the front, was very dark, and the skin was starting to slip when we moved her body, which is another indication that death had been at least 36 hours prior.
Then did you eventually make arrangements to have Ms. Blanchard's body transported for autopsy?
Yes, we rolled her over, looked for other injuries, secured her in a body bag. We put a identification tag on the left ankle at the scene, and then we put a locking seal on the body bag. We, at this scene, had another investigator who came out with the van, and we transported her to the medical examiner's office at that point.
Is that then when her autopsy was conducted?
Her autopsy was conducted, I believe we started just before 1 o'clock that same day in the afternoon.
In general, I should have asked this earlier, what is an autopsy?
An autopsy is a complete examination of the body used to determine the cause of death and help to determine the manner of death.
Did you assist in Ms. Blanchard's autopsy?
Yes, I did.
Who was the medical examiner or forensic pathologist?
Dr. Jeff Harkin was the medical examiner at that point.
And was there anyone else present during the autopsy besides yourself and Dr. Harkin?
Yes, there were detectives from the Greene County Sheriff's Office that were present at the autopsy.
In a case like this of a suspected homicide, is that unusual to have law enforcement there while you're doing the autopsy?
No, that is standard, that law enforcement attends any autopsy for a suspicious death.
Prior to examining Ms. Blanchard's injuries, did you do some preliminary evidence collection?
Once the body bag is open and we put evidence bags on the hands at the scene, those bags are removed one at a time. The hands are photographed. We did collect all the specimens for a sexual assault kit, which is standard in a homicide that we do that. That included clipping the nails, swabs of the mouth, vaginal swabs, rectal swabs, and combings and pulled hairs, both pubic and head hairs.
And specifically with the swabbing of the mouth, what's that called?
It's a buccal swab, and it's a swab that we just rub the inside of the cheek for any DNA material that may be there.
And in your experience, is that type of swab of the cheek typical to obtain a sample of that person's own DNA?
Yes.
Now, when you were collecting the swabs from Ms. Blanchard, what did you do with them after you had collected them?
I collected the swabs and handed them directly to one of the detectives from the sheriff's office, who then packaged those and collected the whole kit.
Did you make any preliminary observations on the clothing of Ms. Blanchard?
She was wearing a nightgown, and it had multiple holes in the back and a few holes on the side, I believe.
Then after the preliminary examination, did you go ahead and examine Ms. Blanchard's body for injury?
Yes.
And did you photograph that process?
Yes, I did.
First, show you what has been marked as State's Exhibits 13 through 18. If you could just take a second and look at those. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
What are they?
Those are photographs from the scene of Miss Blanchard as she was found in her bed and then packaged in a body bag.
And do the images of Ms. Blanchard in those photographs fairly and accurately depict how she looked when you saw her?
Yes.
Then I'm going to show you what I have marked as State's Exhibits 36 through 41, if you could take a moment and look through those. Do you recognize those?
Yes.
What are they?
Those are photographs taken at the autopsy of Miss Blanchard.
And do they fairly and accurately reflect how she looks during the autopsy?
Yes.
And then lastly, State's Exhibit 42, do you recognize what that is?
That is a short form Missouri death certificate.
And is that for Claudine Blanchard?
Yes, it is.
Honor, at this time, the state would seek to admit State's Exhibits 13 through 18.
No objection.
We receive it, objection.
And admissions of 36 through 42.
No objection, Your Honor.
We receive it, objection.
Your Honor, due to the sensitive nature of these photographs, may I publish them by giving each juror their own packet that has a copy of them rather than show them on the screen?
Yes. Are you going to have the witness describing the notes here?
Yes. And you can refer to your copy if that's okay. What are we looking at here and what's already been admitted as State's Exhibit 1?
That is the outside front of Ms. Blanchard's residence with a vehicle parked in the driveway beside it.
And then flipping to the next page, what's depicted in State's Exhibit 12?
That is the view into Ms. Blanchard's bedroom from the doorway.
Flipping to the next page, what's in State's Exhibit 13?
And that is a closer image of Ms. Blanchard as she was found from the right side.
Flipping to the next page.
And that was the photograph taken from the left side, from beside the bed of Ms. Blanchard.
And looking in State's Exhibit 14, is that blood basically that's kind of soaked there through her nightgown?
Yes, the back of the nightgown was saturated and mostly dried at the time that I saw her.
And it looks like there, then that pink sheet lower than that, and then ultimately the comforter also has some blood.
Yes.
Other than that, did you observe any kind of blood that flew onto the walls or anything like that?
Not that I observed. When I was there, it was early morning and we were in suboptimal lighting conditions.
And what is that called when blood kind of projects from the body?
Cast off, when an item is withdrawn that has blood on it, blood is cast off of that item, and blood spatter is the overall forensic field of looking at the blood evidence left at the scene.
Then flipping to State's Exhibit 15, what are we looking at?
That is the initial lifting the back of the nightgown to see some of the wounds on Ms. Blanchard's back.
State's Exhibit 16, flipping to the next page, what is that?
That is a large wound on the back of the neck. And you also have wounds on the right side of the neck that are visible in this picture also.
Then flipping to the next page, State's Exhibit 17, what is that?
That is after we were able to move Ms. Blanchard onto a body bag onto the other side of the bed to prepare for transporting her. The locking seal has been placed on the body bag and her name and the autopsy number were written on the back.
And then flipping to State's Exhibit 18, what is that?
That is a close-up of the locking seal that shows the individual number for that seal. Each seal has its own unique number.
And fair to say what we just looked at, Exhibits 13 through 18 were all pictures that were taken at the scene.
Yes.
Now, going back for a moment to the autopsy, when it came time to inspect the body of Ms. Blanchard for injury,
Yes.
were you there personally present?
Yes, I was.
And did you personally observe each injury on the external part of her body?
Yes.
Did you personally observe what, if any, damage those external injuries caused to the inside of her body?
I did.
In general, what type of injuries did Ms. Blanchard have?
She had both stab wounds and incised or cutting wounds.
How many stab wounds did she have?
She had 17 stab wounds.
And how many incised wounds?
There were 2 large incised wounds, but they appeared to have been a series of cuts to cause those 2 large wounds.
Given I guess, which general part of her body were the stab wounds to?
The stab wounds were primarily over the upper back. There was 1 stab wound on the right side, and there was 1 stab wound just above the collarbone on the right side on the front, and 2 in the back of the head.
Now, of the wounds on the neck, you mentioned that there were both stab wounds and those incised wounds.
Yes.
Based on your training and experience, what causes an incised wound?
A sharp object drawn across in a cutting motion to cause a large cut injury.
If we flip to the next page, which is State Exhibit 36, what are we looking at this picture?
That is the body bag at the autopsy, showing that the locking seal is still intact, and we have added the autopsy number little scale we put in all the photographs taken at autopsy.
Then if you flip the page, what are we looking at? State Exhibit 37.
That is the incised wound on the back of the neck to the left side of the page, and on the right side of the page is the large incised wound to the right side of the neck, which in this photograph there are several wounds that look like they run together into one large wound on the right side.
And specifically, kind of up there towards the top, that more circular wound, what type is that?
It appears that that was a stab wound, and there were 2 stab wounds to the back of the head, just right at the top of the neck.
And in your training and experience, would those be caused by a different mechanism than the incised wounds?
Well, a stabbing is a puncture going straight in or at an angle, but to just puncture the skin and hit whatever's underneath, as opposed to the cutting motion of a incised wound.
And then if you flip the page, States Exhibit 38, what are we seeing in this picture?
In this picture, it shows the both wounds, the large incised wounds, but it also does show the there is a stab wound behind the right ear, at the back of the head, just at the top of the neck, and then also the larger incised wound on the right side of the neck.
And then if we flip the page to States Exhibit 39, what is this picture focusing on?
This shows multiple superficial wounds on the right side of the neck going down towards the shoulder, and it shows the clear forked tails in that large wound on the right that indicate it was several cutting motions for that wound. The other wounds on the right are very superficial, and just one peeled some superficial skin, and several of them are just scratches.
Now, in regard to the incised wound on the back of the neck, were you able to tell how deep that was?
That wound did go all the way into where it was in contact with the bone of the cervical spine, and it contacted that between the 6th and 7th cervical vertebrae.
And how about the depth of the incised wound on the side?
The wound on the right side also went down to the cervical spine until it contacted the bone.
If you flip to State's Exhibit 40, what is this a photograph of?
That is a photograph of Miss Blanchard's back taken from the right side.
And there are numbers there. What do those signify?
Dr. Harkey numbered each wound, and this shows the numbers 1 through 14 for the stab wounds on the back.
And of those 14 wounds there on the back, were there certain ones that caused significantly more damage than others?
Of these wounds, wound number 3, number 5, number 6, number 7, number 12, and number 14 penetrated into the chest cavity and a couple of them on into the abdominal cavity of Ms. Blanchard.
And if you go ahead and flip to State's Exhibit 41, what is this exhibit?
This is a photograph that I initialed when I circled those 6 wounds that penetrated into the body cavities and damaged internal structures.
If we start with wound number 3, what was the internal damage caused on that one?
Wound number 3 went into the left side of the chest. It damaged the left lung, went into the pericardial sac, and then went into the left atrium of the heart.
And how about wound number 5?
Wound number 5 went into the left or the right side of the chest and damaged the the right lung, and I believe it may have also penetrated into through the diaphragm and into the liver.
And wound number 6?
Wound number 6 penetrated into the right side of the chest and into the right lung.
Number 7?
Wound number 7 penetrated into the right side of the chest and into the right lung.
Wound number 12?
Wound number 12 penetrated into the chest and into the right lung.
And lastly, number 14?
And number 14 penetrated into the chest, into the right lung, and then I believe it also went through the diaphragm into the liver.
If you go ahead and flip to the last page, State's Exhibit 42, can you describe this exhibit?
This is a copy of the Missouri death certificate for Dee Dee Blanchard.
And when are these issued?
These are issued after the certifying doctor has enough information to make the determination of the cause and manner of death.
And it says there next to date of death, June 14th of 2015.
Yes.
Is that meant as the actual date of her death?
No, that is actually the date found. When we don't know the specific day of the death, we put on the death certificate the date that the body is found.
And ultimately, what was the listed cause of death?
The cause of death is listed as stab wounds.
Like that moment here.
Yeah.
I don't have any further questions. I do.
Mr. Clerk?
Just briefly.
Sir?
My question would be, you can't tell us the order of these stab wounds, is that correct?
That is correct.
You can't tell us the time frame that these stab wounds occurred, is that correct?
The stab wounds would appear to be at the time of death. They were very closely within minutes of the time of death. And that certainly appeared to be more than 36 hours from the condition of the body, from the time I examined her early morning on June 15th.
Okay, you can't tell us the time frame as relation to the other injuries. In other words, they all occur in a very short period of time, in your opinion?
Yes, all appear to have occurred in a very short time.
And almost all of the injuries were on the back, at least all the stab wounds, correct?
Correct.
And there was one stab wound kind of on her, it looks like her right shoulder, kind of on the side or just barely in front.
Yes.
That would be consistent with maybe her lifting up and the process of the stabbing continuing, correct?
It could be that.
And then she had some injuries on her hand.
There was one incised wound on the ring finger of, I believe, the left hand.
And there were stab wounds and incised wounds, correct?
Correct.
And stab wounds, would, as you demonstrated earlier, would be the stabbing motion.
Yes.
And incised would be more of a slice or a cut.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned rigor mortis. When does that normally start after one passes away?
Rigor mortis starts to set in within several hours. It's determined by the temperature and activity at the time of death, how soon it really starts. But by 6 to 8 hours, rigor mortis is firm, and after 24 to 36 hours, rigor mortis passes away again.
Okay, and when you say passes away, tell us what that means.
The body is in the position, but when we move an extremity, it doesn't try to go back to that position. It's flaccid once we move.
And your best guess as to time of death would have been about 36 hours before she was found?
That was a minimum. It could have been longer than that.
That's all questions I have, Judge.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
May this witness speak, please.
Yes, on behalf of the city.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you for your excuse. If you could take those exhibit folders and pass them down to I'm assuming you're not going to use them in the next one.
Correct.
Check one over here if you would. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending before the court will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Have a seat. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Will you please state your name?
Ben Jordan.
Mr. Julian, what's your current occupation?
I am self-employed.
Doing?
I sell used industrial equipment.
How long have you done that?
Just slightly over 3 years.
What did you do before owning your own business?
I was a detective sergeant here at the Boone County Sheriff's Office.
What were your duties as a detective sergeant?
Followed through with investigation crimes, mostly felony crimes.
How long total were you with the sheriff's office?
August 22nd, I believe, of 2009 to July 30th of 2015.
And specifically back in June of 2015, what were your duties?
I was a detective sergeant.
In which unit was that in?
Persons.
Okay. And probably like it sounds.
Persons crimes.
All right. Specifically on June 14th of 2015, did you become involved in an investigation involving the death of Claudine Blanchard?
Yes.
How did you initially become involved?
I was called out that night to their residence and began doing neighborhood canvas was what I was assigned to do.
Were you already on duty when you were called out, or were you?
No,
Okay.
I was
off duty.
off. Yeah.
And was one of your tasks to attend Ms. Blanchard's autopsy?
Yes,
And what date was that?
it was July 15, 2015.
Duty June.
Or, I'm sorry, June. Sorry, I apologize.
Have you investigated homicides before?
Yes,
And is it common for an investigator to be present there during the autopsy?
yes.
Why is that?
To collect evidence, record findings, photographs.
And did you take any part in collecting evidence during Ms. Blanchard's autopsy?
Yes.
Can you describe what you did?
From start to finish, basically collected the body containment bag she was in, was sealed for that. Her hands were sealed within bags by our crime scene investigators from the scene, so I collected those and they were removed. There was a necklace and her clothing I collected, and then DNA type evidence swabs, pulled hairs from her head, pulled pubic hairs, combed pubic hairs, fingernail clippings from both hands, and then buccal swabs from her mouth, vagina, and anus.
And were all of those swabs and different things kind of contained into one kit?
Individually packaged, yes.
So, and was it in a rape kit?
Yes.
Who actually took the samples?
Forensic investigator Tom Vandeberg.
Now, were you present when he
Yes.
took them, and then did you yourself collect them?
Yes, after each one, I immediately collected them and put them in their respective package.
Did you make any marking on them so that to document the fact that you were collecting them?
Yes.
And what was that marking?
My initials and my DSN number, 704.
And you mentioned buccal swab. What's a buccal swab?
It's basically a swab that will collect DNA samples from whatever it's in contact with, the mouth, commonly done.
And also, can those be called oral swabs as well?
Yes.
And specifically, did you collect the oral swab of Ms. Blanchard?
Yes.
And what did you do with it after it was handed to you?
Packaged it in its separate box, and then it was placed into my evidence bag. Basically, I put it back in that sexual assault kit, and then later finalized my packaging and submitted it to our property room.
Not Roach.
Yes.
I'll show you what I've marked as State's Exhibit 43. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
That is my handwriting on that. It says oral swab and the time, 13-12 hours.
And is this oral swab the one that was taken at Ms. Blanchard during her autopsy?
Yes.
And is it in the same or substantially same condition with your markings as it was when you collected it?
Yes.
Your Honor, the state would seek to admit State's Exhibit 43.
No objection.
It'll be received without
And I'll have further questions.
any questions of this witness.
No, Your Honor.
May he be excused.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We have another one.
Sir, State Sergeant Steve Martin.
Come on up, officer. Have a seat. Watch your step. You can have a seat. I always worry somebody will call me to swear.
Sorry.
These songs says the testimony you're about to give in the cause now pending for the court will be the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Can you say your name for the record, please?
Steve Martin
How are you employed?
with the Greene County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you worked for the Greene County Sheriff's Office?
December of 2007, so 11 years.
Where's your current assignment?
Patrol supervisor?
And you're a sergeant.
Yes.
What do you do as a patrol supervisor?
My job is to supervise the daily activities of the officers on the street, currently taking calls for service, making traffic stops, etc.
How is it different being a patrol sergeant versus being a detective sergeant?
Patrol sergeant is handling the day-to-day stuff as far as in-progress type calls, whereas as a detective, it's kind of a reactive approach.
so to speak.
I want to take you back to June of 2015 and July of 2015. Were you working in the detective division at that time?
I was.
What was your general assignment? What were you typically doing?
I was assigned to the property crimes division at the time, during that time.
And even though you were in the property unit, would you help on a case such as a homicide?
Yes.
Can you explain why you would do that if you're in the property section?
As a detective within the sheriff's office, you can be tasked with many different aspects of the job. So a lot of different detectives within the division know different assignments, have different skills, I guess, as you would say.
As part of your investigation, let me back then, did you become involved in part of the investigation of the death of Claudine Blanchard?
I did.
And as part of that investigation, were you assigned to look into where a person named Nicholas Godejohn had been,
Yes.
as well as Gypsy Blanchard?
Yes.
And as part of that, did you respond to the Days Inn here in Springfield?
I did.
Have you received information about them checking out on or about the June 11th and or June 12th
I did.
of that year? Were you able to obtain some surveillance video that showed one or both of them?
Yes.
Who did the surveillance video show in general?
It showed generally Mr. Godejohn, but it also, we believed it was a female gypsy as well on the surveillance.
And so in the surveillance video, was it at more than one location within the Days Inn?
Yes.
What locations specifically?
The front desk and also in a hallway where an elevator is located.
And so, for example, at the front desk, who was seen on the surveillance video?
The defendant, Mr. Godejohn.
And you called someone the defendant. You see someone you know as Nicholas Godejohn here in the courtroom?
Yes.
Would you point him out and describe what he's wearing?
He's sitting at the defendant's table wearing a white with a tan kind of checkered shirt.
Record reflect identification of the defendant?
It was so reflect.
And then you mentioned seeing him and Gypsy Blanchard somewhere else. Where was it you saw them on the surveillance video?
Together, they were seen exiting an elevator in the hallway.
And you had an opportunity to view that surveillance video from June 11th and June 12th?
Yes.
And did it fairly accurately capture those locations at the Days Inn?
Yes.
Here the system was working properly?
Yes.
I'm going to show you a disc, a DVD, that's been marked with, it says State versus Nicholas Godejohn at the top and the case number. And then at the bottom it says State's Exhibits 46, and it lists them individually, the 46 through 67. Do you see that?
Yes.
Do you recognize this disc?
Yes.
How do you recognize this particular disc?
Those are videos as well as, I believe, still photos from the surveillance video that came from Days Inn.
And so, particularly the Days Inn, it states Exhibits 46 through 49 and 55 through 62 on the disc, correct?
Yes.
And you've seen those on the disc?
Yes.
And did you do something to this disc so you would recognize it again?
I put my initials in the upper right corner.
And so I see some initials PT, which is not you,
Correct.
And then just below that, SM, for Steve Martin that issued.
Yes, sir.
And so, do State's Exhibits for identification 46 through 49 and 55 through 62 fairly and accurately represent that surveillance video of the front desk and of that elevator location at the Days Inn on June 11th and June 12th, 2015?
Yes.
Nothing further at this time?
You're not offering, correct?
Not offering at this time.
Mr. Reed, Mr. Perry, any questions?
Briefly, Your Honor.
Sir?
Sergeant Horton, you had an opportunity to review that disc prior to today,
Yes.
and it showed Mr. Godejohn arriving there at the hotel.
Shows him at the front desk, yes.
And does it show him checking in?
Yes.
And do you know what manner of payment he used in checking in?
I do not.
All right, thank you, sir.
Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Anything further?
No, sir.
May he be excused?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. We have another Well, we can show you this, sir. We can do it.
And I'm morning witnesses, Your Honor.
All right. Well, folks, it'd be a good time. Come on, quick. I want to again remind you what you were told at the first recess of the court. Until you retire to consider your verdict, you must not discuss this case among yourselves or with others, or permit anyone to discuss it in your hearing. You should not form or express any opinion about the case until it is finally given to you to decide. Do not do any research or investigation on your own about any matter regarding this case or anyone involved with the trial. Do not communicate with others about the case by any means. Do not read, view, or listen to any newspaper, radio, electronic communication from the internet, or television report of the trial. It's about 12:15 now. I would plan on coming back about 1:30. You're permitted to have lunch with one another if you choose to do so. Please don't discuss the case at all during lunch. If anyone would approach you and try to talk to you, please tell them you can't speak to them. But we do let my bailiff know if that would happen. Thank you so much. All right. And we'll see you downstairs. At 1:30. All righty, Mr. Godejohn, you go. You see, we have lunch for you. Okay, and as soon as your attorneys come back, we'll bring you back on the board. Thank you all. See you at 1:30.
I take it.